Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video looking through all the monsters that came out in 2020. Today we're looking at the Shadow monsters, and once again, as always, this is from the anniversary to the anniversary, so it's not quite 2020, it's more like Halloween to Halloween. Anyway, this video is going to be split into three parts, as they all are. First part, going through the themes and sub-themes in Shadow, then we're going to look at the new monsters in that order shown. 2020, we've got a load of waifu coming into the game because that is the market trend. And then lastly, looking through what the element has gained, where it stands now and what it needs. There are links in the description to go to all those parts. And apologies in advance if you hear any music in the background. My family are currently doing some recording and I don't know if it's going to come through. It's in the room just below me, but yeah, hopefully it won't be coming through on the microphone. Anyways, so in Shadow, we've got this screen here. Loads of monsters in Shadow. Shadow is the element with the most monsters in the game at Legendary and Mythic. There are absolutely tons of them, and this year we got more than we got in any other element. However, that is artificially inflated. Those 6 Legendaries, 3 of them are actually shiny Legendaries that were already in the game. They just got redesigned this year, so they're worthy additions for this video, but they're not necessarily, it's not like they were designing loads of new Shadow monsters. Those 3 were already there. Anyway, we've got 4 Mythics, 6 Legendaries, 5 Super Epics, and 3 0 to 4 star monsters to go through. There's a lot of very interesting monsters in these. It'll be a lot of fun looking through them. Shadow, as an element, it has the most full attack and standard attack monsters. It's the most aggressive element. Previously, I think it was kind of tied in that result, but we've had more tanky monsters come out in the last year, and so Shadow is now standing out even more so with being the aggressive element. That said, unlike other aggressive elements, it's not super fast. There's actually a lot of lower speed monsters. I said half are 50% or below. It's just under half. It's like 49 point something percent. But yeah, basically compared to other elements, Holy and Earth are the slowest. Holy being the slowest by far. So yeah, Holy, and then it's Earth, and then it's Shadow, I believe, is the next slowest one. So not a fast element here, but very aggressive monsters, and a lot of them are about sweeping. In terms of the monster types, there are loads of demons, phantoms, and dragons in Shadow. Demons and phantoms in particular are Shadow's kind of playing field. There's not really much of that in the other elements. So that's how Shadow looks in general. Looking at the themes, the first theme is the guaranteed kill theme. Now, I think I called it the death sentence film or something. So death sentence theme or something last year. But yeah, it's guaranteed kill, I think, fits it maybe a little bit better. So on the left here we have monsters which have moves which kind of instantly kill. So you've got the Guardian Execute, instantly killing a protector. Magatsuo creates the Magatoid that then instantly kills anything that's poisoned. You've got the Mark Trigger on, always test myself on the names here, can't remember the name of that monster now. Nefariodon, that's it. And then you've got the guaranteed revenges from Tortogeist and Skeleviathan. They guaranteed kill as their revenge. And then on the right you've got all the stuff which is the death sentence stuff, so it takes a bit of time and then the monster dies off. The vast majority of the time it's if that monster is still on the field. Both monsters are still on the field after the time passes. Yeah, so Shadow has a lot of stuff which can guarantee kill something. And for that reason, a lot of the stuff which Shadow does is just very well suited for PvE and not for PvP. And this is one of those things, a standout theme in the element that you don't particularly want to use in PvP that much. It doesn't work so well. So next we have the stealth theme. There are not many monsters here. This has been my sort of pet peeve with Shadow. That I love stealth. There are a number of people who love the stealth sneak attack archetype. It's very interesting to play with compared to some of the other archetypes, but it hasn't had a whole lot of support. Certainly not in Shadow. We haven't had a new monster here other than Doom Moth, which is it's a little bit awkward, and it's basically the sneak attack monster. The sneak attack moth, is in Holy, not in Shadow, which is a bit odd. Doom Moth's here because it's got Purify Mist, but yeah, basically we haven't had a sneak attack stealth Shadow monster for a few years now. It's just been a lot more in water, as we'll see in the water video. There's a lot of stuff supporting it there now. I was really hoping that Shadow would have this as a theme, but they've kind of maybe gone a little bit more down another route, so we'll have to see. Anyway, the monsters that we do have here are very, very strong. Tenebrae, with the entrance stealthing your whole team, is exceptionally powerful. The monster itself is probably the best PvE monster in the game. Well, I say probably. It's the best PvE monster in the game. It can single-handedly win the vast majority of battles. And then Zulong is a Link Shadow stealth monster, so really pushes the Link Shadow here. On the right, we've got the Super Epic, which recently-ish, I think, got upgraded, so it has poison immunity, which obviously helps with stealth stuff. Because if you're poisoned, you can't stealth yourself unless it's like purifying stealth. It's really awkward, so it just shuts down stealth monsters. So poison immunity really helps out there. Plus, it got venom sneak attack, so it can deal with whole ground monsters. And sneak attack in general can now bypass protectors, so it got a bit of a buff with that, and it's definitely made it very interesting to play with. So this Rattleworm on the right, it can, hit around a protector and kill a monster with whole ground. Quite cool for a super epic. So anyway, there's some strong monsters here, but the support has been lacking in the last few years. So we'll have to see how this goes going forward. Next, we have the poison theme. Now, this is something which I think last year I talked about how originally in the game I didn't rate Shadow Poison as a high thing because the monsters which they had in Poison were not the best ones for actually sweeping or using it very well. But last year, 2019, we got some proper support for it, and this year we'll get some more support for it. So anyway, the way we've got things laid out here is on the left, those are the Poison Revenge monsters. There's actually a Poison Revenge all in the, if I can remember the name of it, the sort of fairy-looking one. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, that's got Poison Revenge all, while the other ones have Poison Revenge, so you've got some interesting stuff there. Then you've got a couple of monsters which are technically a bit of poison, but they don't do much with poison. And then on the right, you've got the Poison Sweepers, and there are some really powerful ones there. So Deathgazer has been buffed multiple times to actually be a reasonable sweeper. You've got, the two on the right, they are technically solo, but they're only solo for the blood move, so they can be used in poison in shadow perfectly fine, and you don't really need to worry about the blood move on them. But they're both very powerful poison sweepers, Pumpkin especially. And then also the Abyss Soldier, which we got last year in 2019. That is an exceptionally good super epic sweeper because it gets that stats buff if it's alone. It is solo, so you wouldn't use it in Link Shadow, but if you've got any poison around, it can really devastate enemy teams with the 130-second double poison eater on a actually reasonably tanky monster for only 10 cost. So there's some very powerful poison monsters now in Shadow. It's definitely something that's doing strongly. Next we have the healing/cannibalize subtheme. Now, over time we're definitely getting healing stuff more in each of the elements. Holy is the one that stands out and has loads and loads of monsters for it. But Shadow, I would say, is the next one that stands out with having some bits for it. So things are a little bit jumbled here because I used the same slide as I had last year and then just kind of added some monsters onto it. But yeah, on here we've got a bit of cannibalize stuff, a bit of sacrifice heal to heal a teammate, that kind of thing. There's a devour, soul sacrifice, there's stuff in here which heals in interesting ways. And if you're wondering why Focal Force is in here, I think Focal Force is one of the big payoffs for healing because it's a tanky monster and it can raw taunt as well. So they'll hopefully be hitting it multiple times because then it gets a turn every time it gets hit. So if you can keep healing that back up, it's a massive payoff for that. I don't know how viable that necessarily is, but it's definitely something that has some potential. So some quite cool stuff here. And also note as well, I think it's, no, not Dire Demon, what's it called? Devilborg, in roughly the middle here. That has been upgraded and it's actually a seriously good Link Shadow monster now. It's got Link Survivor Plus, which can do really high damage. I think it's Link Survivor Plus. Hopefully I'm not mistaken there. But it's also got a couple of passives that make it tank and do damage nicely. And then it has the Link Summon minions, so it can then have the fuel to heal teammates, and then you'll later be a sweeper. That was originally one of the worst super epics in the game, and I'm not going to talk about it in this video later, we're not having a look at it, even though it's kind of been redesigned over the years. But now it is actually a really powerful Link Shadow monster that fits with this sub-theme we're talking about here. If there's anything that needs healing in Link Shadow, then it can do that very nicely and also work as a sweeper later on. So next we have the Necromancy subtheme. This, there are only a few monsters here. This is very much PvE oriented, and the idea, the difference from Revival is that it's got a bit more of a focus on making your opponent's monsters in your team. So on the right you've got the two Mirror Revenge type monsters, so they obviously make a copy of the opponent's monster, and then we've got Atrahasis in the middle, which, while it does have combos that it can do, one of the main reasons you do want to use it is to create copies of the enemy monsters. And then on the left is Revenantine, which doesn't do that exactly, but it works very nicely with any Necromancy or Revival stuff, because it's dying twice over each cycle of itself, because both it dies and then the Nox Egg sacrifices itself, so you can create either one and then you can get another Revenantine, and as it dies it becomes then a really powerful sweeper. So Necromancy subtheme, very cool, very powerful in PvE, all those monsters are great. The next one is the AoE spam subtheme. So this is something that kind of came out a bit more in 2019, and it's just kind of shadow aggression, mainly revolving around Nova Drake with the enraged teammate from I was going to say Dire Demon. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Dire Demon whenever it's a D monster. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. That frog, anyway. Yeah, the frog can arrange teammate Nova Drake, and then the 50-second assisted Dusk is just insane for sweeping. Bit more of a PvE strategy, but this is kind of people's go-to in PvP. If they're going to run Link Shadow, especially in the front line, they tend to do it as a sort of AoE spam type thing. It works quite nicely. It's not top tier, but it is, yeah, it's good enough for the other stuff. And yeah, there's a bunch of monsters which fit into it fairly nicely. So that's it for the sub-themes. Sorry, themes and sub-themes. Let's have a look at the new monsters now. This is starting off with the 0 to 4 star monsters. We've got a bunch of those to go through. So this is one of the shiny versions of an original monster that was in the game, and I'm not totally impressed with this. So this has one interesting thing about it that some people like, which is the death entrance. So when it enters, it has a 50% chance of killing an enemy, a 50% chance of killing a teammate, but not itself. The reason why I'm pointing out this a 50-50 is because you would normally think that, say there are 4 enemies and there's 3 teammates other than, you know, this monster. You think, oh well, it's 4/7 chance of hitting the opponent, 3/7 chance of hitting yourself, but it's actually the vast majority of the time. I think it's the case every time. When we have something like this in the game, like the roulette monsters as well, the roulette moves, sorry, they tend to do a sort of 50-50 chance of which side of the battlefield they're hitting, and then they do a kind of, okay, which one of those monsters hitting. So if you're like the last monster standing with Death Roulette and there are 4 enemies, if you use Death Roulette, you'd think, oh, well, it's just a 20% chance of hitting myself. It's actually a 50% chance, and I think it's to balance it in that kind of scenario. Anyway, that aside, so the death entrance, it comes in, it has a kill instantly, and then it wants a second kill to charge Bloodthirst. Gets a turn at reasonable speed, but the damage is just not really high enough. All it's got is the Raw Poison Eater, which has been increased to 160 seconds now, so it's pretty slow at trying to get a kill, and it's not going to do enough damage with that move either. So it can't kill something from full health. It needs to be as squishy a monster, something that's not on full health. Those things combined, I mean. So it struggles to get a second kill. You don't want to be using this near the start of your team, because it may just come in and then not manage to get a second kill and then sit there doing very little. There are much better monsters in the game. I don't think there's much point going through this more than that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting with the death entrance, because it can somewhat save you from a bad situation where you've got, say, your team stunned out of play or just otherwise disabled. This can enter, it can kill a teammate, and then you have, you know, another monster entering, so you have a bit more to play with. But to be honest, there's better stuff for that, and I don't rate that too highly. The next is another shiny version of an earlier monster in the game. This one I don't rate particularly high. I think it's more interesting because this is a very low cost toxic entrance. 8 cost in your team to have toxic entrance. I think it's the only monster in the game that can be like that, unless you use like a Nox Dragon, or sorry, Nox Dragon, Bane Dragon, or the Black Titan Unevolved. But you know, it basically, if I get my words out, using a fully evolved monster, this is the lowest cost thing that has toxic entrance in the game. So pretty cool for that instance. Other than that though, it's not going to do that much. Poison Eater, like I was saying on the previous monster, not really great damage. The Link Poison Massacre, that looks very cool. However, in the vast majority of scenarios, enemies, there'll be like a camouflage monster there, or a poison immune monster, or something that, like say you kill another enemy, like one of the enemies before this gets a turn, and you don't have auto-poison, so the new monster that enters isn't poisoned. Like there's loads of scenarios where you're just not actually going to have all 4 enemies poisoned, and as soon as you don't have all 4 enemies poisoned, this monster is not going to do enough damage with it. So I think in the vast majority of scenarios, this is just a cheap toxic entrance that you might use in certain combos. That's it, really. Let's move on to the next monster. So next we have Spookoid. Now this is actually really, really good. So this came in the cycle of special rocks that all have some, I think pretty much all have some kind of revenge. Yeah, pretty much all have revenge. So this actually has a decent move in Stealth All. It's 160 seconds rather than 100 or 130 that we see on the higher quality monsters. But still, it's actually pretty useful having Stealth All because the hits are not going to do that much. So it can remove a shield or stealth or whatever from enemies with the attacks, or you can stealth your team. But the cool thing about this is the Mirror Curse. So it's like Mirror Revenge, but not guaranteed. Now the thing is that makes this really good is it's got Auto Protect. So as soon as this hits the battlefield, it's going to be in the way. It doesn't have to wait to get a turn to protect, it doesn't get countered by repulse or anything like that. So compared to Horror Claw, which is the super epic with Mirror Revenge that has protect, there's a few ways that that gets countered, as well as the fact that this is a 4 cost monster compared to a 10 cost monster. So there's a lot that's going for this, even though it is, you know, it's a weaker Mirror Revenge, it's only a 60% chance of doing it. But yeah, I could definitely see this being used in a bunch of places. If you've got only a few cost in your team, you don't mind having a protector there, then this is something that's very nice to slap in. Along with Metoid, that is probably the best kind of general use special rock from this cycle. Spookoid, I would say, is maybe the next one that's good for just general use. Yeah, it's a cool monster. I definitely use this in my Ultimate Challenge team. Oh, it can be very, very good. So next we have the Abyss Soldier, Des. I'm not entirely sure what Des is for, maybe Destroy. They know all these Abyss Soldiers, they had kind of like some funny name. So Abyss Soldier Hill was heal, it was like misspelling hill, misspelling heal, and Des, I'm not entirely sure what that stands for. Anyway, this one is probably the worst of the bunch. The design of it is just horrible, but that said, it can kind of work, I don't know. So it's got the stats buff that you get with all of these, but that doesn't matter at all because it's just kind of like, you know, you're not going to use this by itself, basically. It needs to be with another Abyss Soldier in some way to get the Bond Fatal Revenge, which is Death Revenge, basically. But, yeah. The idea is, like, the general design is it's a Death Revenge monster that has Protect and it can clone itself, except that it's so much worse than that, because when it comes to... So it has to be used with another Abyss Soldier. Then when it comes to a turn, if it does the Blood Clone, then as soon as something dies, something else dies, because remember, it's not protecting at that point, then the second one enters. Once the second one enters, they can't use the Protect, because they're both Shadow, so their solo moves are shut off. So the second one can't clone itself, and neither of them can Protect. So basically you've got to do the Protect first in a lot of scenarios, and when you do the Protect, then it will probably be killed off, and then great, you got a Death Revenge. But like, it's really slow, so it's like, it takes a while to get a turn, it protects, and then it gets killed, and gets one kill, or something like that. You know, it could be absorbed by a shield or something, so, you know, it's not even a guaranteed kill. Anyway, so what it kind of needs to do is, like, protect, then get another turn, then clone itself, then this dies, and then the next one enters, then that needs to wait to get a turn, then protect, then clone. It's super slow, and it's just nowhere near as good as Nebelronix and Cosmodragon, which aren't even considered to be amazing monsters. So Yeah, this is a really awkward monster that I don't think the design quite works. I think they toned down the design of Cosmodragon and Eberonics, but way too much that it just doesn't really. I can't see this consistently working to the point that anyone would actually want to use it. But yeah, so let's just move on from it. Next we have Alpha Gear, the shiny one. I should actually say we have moved on to Super Epics from the 0 to 4 star monsters. So that was the first Super Epic. And anyway, so Alpha Gear, this is a shiny version of the normal Alpha Gear, which strangely is in the same element. This one has since had a little bit of a speed buff, so the difference between this and the normal one is that the Team Turn has become Link Team Turn, which is just a restriction. The knockback has become Raw Knockback, so it can knock back around protectors. And the normal Gigablight, I think it's called, has turned into Kinslayer, which is a definite upgrade. So it's a bit kind of like, it's had some buff, but then forced to use in a Link team. So, you know, it's got to move to charge Bloodcrave now, in that it can kill shadow monsters, and the knockback's a bit better. That's basically it. But the downside is it's got to be Raw if you want to use the knockback, and it's got to be Link if you want to use the main move, which is Team Turn. So it's fine. I've got it rated reasonably highly because I think, you know, you can find the team for this and use it, and it's in the right team. It's better than the normal Alpha Gear, but I'm not super impressed by this. It is limited by its older style moveset that only really works in lower tier. Oh, actually, that's also why I've got it rated highly, is because the tier list for Super Epics, I tend to do it slightly more on the fact of if you're a newer player or you don't have a large collection. So in that case, this monster can work well at that kind of level of the gameplay which you're doing. But it's just when you get to later stages where everyone's playing Legendaries and everything, that this one falls by the wayside a lot. So yeah, that's why it's rated high, even though I'm talking about it being not that great. Anyway, next we have Maradrake. Now this one's really cool, and I think very powerful. The thing to focus in on here is Cornered Stun. So this is a mark monster that can lock things out of play. So let's just assume here, best case scenario, you've got this +9, you've used LM Accelerate on it. Cornered Stun can be 65 seconds. 65 seconds times by 3 is 195, which is under 200. So in theory, if you could speed this up to be as fast as possible, and you had 3 enemies marked that were not protected from stun, Maradrake itself could keep all 3 of them stunned out of play permanently. That is insanely powerful, and the potential here is just amazing. Like, even normally, if you were to not accelerate this, you just have it +9, so the cornered stun is 85 seconds, and you have 2 enemies marked, you can keep both of those locked out of play. That's ultimately, I think, where Maradrake's power comes from, is in a mark team, because this itself, marking them, will be a bit slow, but in a mark team you can mark some enemies and then keep them locked out of play the whole time. That's that's what you want to use it for, and you need to keep them open to stun in order to do that, but I think for a Super Epic that power is amazing. Other than that, it can mark things. It's a bit slower than other things. I think Mark Attack is a weaker version of Mark. Mark being 50 seconds is just really good. So this being 100 is a slight downgrade from that. But Cornered Snipe means it can be a Mark Sweeper, just killing off things that are marked. And then it's also got Whole Ground and Poison Immunity that keep it alive quite well, even though it's got low defense. And then Desperate Bite, which, bear in mind, because this has full attack, Desperate Bite's actually going to be pretty powerful. Bitter Beast, which has, it's probably the most commonly used monster with Whole Ground, Desperate Bite kind of stuff going on. That doesn't have full attack. It has one grade down from that. That's the standard attack. And the damage it deals, it kills most squishy things, but not kind of enough. Not enough monsters. This having the full attack means it's going to kill quite a lot more. It's going to reliably kill most monsters other than the really tanky ones. So all round, it's got good sweeping. It's definitely for a Mark team. Outside of Mark team, I think it's fine. It can kind of do the job, but it's not amazing. I think this is a really, really well designed monster, and even though Mark hasn't become a strong thing in the game yet, I think in the future, when it has a bit more support, that people actually want to use Mark properly in their team, this is a monster that will very much be a part of that and be very powerful in it, if you can learn things up. So next we have the Purpy. Perpy, oh my god, I could go on about this for a very long time. This is a fan favourite monster for sure. It is extremely powerful for PvE. I've shown it in videos already, and I'm definitely going to be showing it in more videos. It is the way how I do Monster Bond Quest. I go all the way to level 120, and it gets incredibly difficult as you go to level 120, but Perpy will win probably about half of the battles from 100 to 120. Just by itself, kind of, you don't have to invest that much to really pull it off. So where to start with this? Basically what it wants to do is create 4 Perpies on your side of the field. Once you hit that point, you pretty much win the game. Because these monsters, they're pretty tanky for a super epic. They're stun immune, poison immune, so the only thing that can really stop them is like Death Revenge and Sleep. And then they have this Delta Super Beam, which just instantly kills all enemies, basically. And while that's 160 seconds, you've got 4 of these monsters on the field, so it's actually happening more like, on average every 40 seconds, which just means like you obliterate the enemy team. So yeah, you want to get to that point, and the ways to get to that point are with Blood Clone Next and Gene Recomposition. Gene Recomposition, it can kill reptiles and turn them into Perpies. Those Perpies unfortunately are not bonused, so they're not +9, but that's the main way to do it, is you put it with reptiles. There are a few of them, like ones with Stun Revenge. There's a particular, I think it's a 2-star monster, that has high speed and knockback. So that's very good for removing their stun protection, and then you accelerate the Perpies and stuff, and you kill off Stun Revenge monsters, you stun the enemies, and then you win. So yeah, it's something which you can build around, and Perpy is very much a build around monster, but it doesn't take too much effort to build around it to then just win the game if you can pull it off. And if you don't manage to pull it off, well then you've got the rest of your team to fight with. That's ultimately how it goes. Headhunter is a very interesting one on this as well. This is there are only 2 monsters in the game with Headhunter so far. Ogre Master, which I talked about at length in the Fire video, and then Perpy here. Perpy I don't think is really going to be a good counter to the waifu, because it's got low speed. This is more kind of built for, you build around it, you win in PvE, and not something which we're going to play in PvP to kill waifu. I've actually got it bottom tier for PvP because I don't think you can pull this off. Like, maybe in the lower tiers of PvP you can catch someone with it, but I've never ever had someone pull this off against me in PvP, and I've seen quite a few people who've tried. So yeah, this is a PvE monster, build around it and you'll just win. It's insanely powerful. Next we have the Pyramid Golem Neuromid. This is the Pyramid Golem in Shadow. It is one of the best for sure. This is incredibly powerful. I have it in the top tier for both PvE and PvP. I said there were going to be interesting monsters in this video. You can see there's some power here. So this is high speed, and just put aside the Pyramid Golem stuff for a second. High speed, poison immunity and hold ground, so it's hard to kill. And it's got double Light Bane with solo Blood Crave. Double Light Bane is an insanely good move. Any holy monster, and this will one-shot a holy monster and a teammate of that holy monster. Yeah, any holy monster, which is fairly common. Like, holy is around the place for sure. Like, you will occasionally meet it where there's just no holy monsters. But if there happens to be any holy monster around, even if it's not there in the front line, but it's like coming up or something, you can save it for the Neuromid to kill it off, kill a teammate, and then once it's got that, it can solo Blood Crave, which is very fast sweeping for a super epic. So this monster outside of Pyramid Golems is actually really quite good. I wouldn't say it's like amazing. It's a bit of a risk to play because they've got to have holy there for you to really get any benefit out of it. You could kill a monster on whole ground with double Light Bane or something, and then solo Blood Crave, nice quick move to just chip something off whole ground to kill it. So you can definitely just use this in a team, but I wouldn't rave about it in its use there. With the Pyramid Golems, it's obviously fast, so it helps with the loading the one which you want loaded quickly. It's going to do that nicely. And then it's got the double healing mortar. That doesn't have to heal other pyramid golems. It can heal anything. So there's more use in that than you might really think. And because all the pyramid golems have hold ground, that's very, very useful for keeping them alive. This is all round just one of the best pyramid golems, and one of the ones which I think really makes people excited by pyramid golems, because they look at this and they're like, wow, this is seriously good support with amazing sweeping on one monster. Now we're moving on to the Legendaries. So first up we have Lava Onyx. This is Shiny Lava Onyx. I'm not going to spend much time on this one. It's just like a weaker team turn. Like, the team turns have gone down a lot since they put the restriction on team turn, which they needed to. They absolutely needed to. But this one, basically it's exactly the same as the normal Lava Onyx, except instead of Stun Immune, it's got Stun Absorber. Stun Absorber works best on a monster which, like, it still does something when it's on the field, or you can give a turn to it to bring it back into play. And because this has team turn, you can't give turn to it. So if this gets stunned out of play, it's out of play permanently. I don't really see any reason to use this monster. It's just a riskier team turn. I would probably use one of the super epic team turns over this. It's not right to put Stun Absorber on this monster. I don't think it's good design, but yeah, it is a team turn monster. So next we have Rune Dragon. Now this one's actually really interesting, very cool. I could go on about it for a long time. I'm going to try and keep it. I know this video's already going a little bit long, so I don't want to push too long. But so this monster is very cool for a few reasons. One of them, which is not something that's immediately obvious, is that it has LM Accelerate. I think this is the first LM Accelerate which we've got in Shadow, which LM Accelerate is very powerful for helping link strategies work. So I'm personally very happy about that. Otherwise, this monster's gimmick is it heals up every single turn. That's every time a monster gets a turn, it heals by this heals by 1,000. So it's healing up to full health, like, very, very consistently. And then coming in and putting an enemy to sleep is one of the most powerful entrance passives. There's definitely counters to sleep nowadays, but it's very good taking an enemy out of play when this enters, because it's a little bit slow. That kind of entrance gives good reliability. So then, as it waits to get a turn, it then gets a turn, and then it can kill with Confident Strike or Sonic Strike pretty reliably. It can kill things, and then it can keep sweeping with Blood Crave. This is just a consistent sweeper. It actually reminds me a lot of the original Glory Onyx, which people were a little bit down on, but it's like, it has a decent entrance, and then once it gets a turn, it just consistently kills at good speed. So works a lot better than you think. So yeah, cool monster. And then the reason why I've got the Lord's Reign here is because the secret skill combines with Lord's Reign. So it needs a little bit of time to pass, but if you can build around that in any way, a good way is to put, say, Lord's Reign a little bit further back in the team, like 2 monsters back or something. So this comes in, does its stuff, consistently kills, then when Lord's Reign hits the field, use the secret skill, and then you make the amazing mythic version. Now, this mythic version, like I said, you've got to build around it a bit to get it. It's a little risky, you won't get it all the time, but if you do, it's very, very powerful. So again, it has a dreamy entrance, so it instantly puts an enemy to sleep when you turn into Rune Conqueror. It's got higher speed, so it will get a turn reasonably quickly, and bear in mind, because this is a mythic, it will be +9 automatically. It's basically got an upgraded moveset, so Blood Crave becomes double Blood Crave, Confident Strike becomes Overconfident Strike, that's a big upgrade there, and Sonic Strike becomes also Sonic Break, the piercing. So all round upgraded, and Link Stun Flash as well, very, very powerful. So it will put an enemy to sleep. When it gets a turn, it then can stun the enemies and then start sweeping. This is kind of subtly a Link Shadow monster that doesn't have to be used in Link Shadow. So yeah, very powerful, and this heals by a bit more, so it keeps alive a little bit better. Very cool monster. A lot of people like the design of it a lot, and it looks really cool as well, I think, art-wise. Next we have Sacramega. Now this has gone under the radar a little bit. It's one of the earliest monsters that I'm showing in any of these videos. It came out very shortly after the 4th anniversary, and it's one that I personally like a lot. For the reason that it's my kind of design. It's very tanky, it's got hardened carapace, so despite having minimum defense, whole ground with hardened carapace, and it's got way to heal, this is going to stay alive really nicely if it's allowed to get turns. Backbite is basically an upgraded backstab. It's easy to not rate the heal on that, but it's seriously good when you've got whole ground and hardened carapace. Healing up every 70 seconds makes this very, very hard to kill. So yeah, it's got backbite, which you can use for entrance control stuff. Double repulse is always quite a good move, and yes, you need to somehow get kills on this, but ultimately I think you'd use this for the backbite, like use it like you would Geomagnus in some ways, but then it has a bit more versatility in the double repulse. It also has piercing, it can hit round protectors with raw bloodthirst, and then Soul Snatch, the secret skill there, very, very powerful if you can get to it. So it can also be used in, say, a control strategy, which it kind of fits anyway with entrance. The fact it's got entrance control itself in backbite, but if you can pass a bit of time while this is on the field and then use Soul Snatch, that's going to go a long way to winning you the game, kind of thing. So yeah, powerful stuff. Really cool monster. Next we have we're still on Legendaries here. Shiny Shadow Hunter. Now this is very similar to the normal Shadow Hunter. Basically they just switched whole ground for camouflage entrance. Ultimately I'm not entirely sure which one is stronger. Probably this one, because in PvE, like this Shadow Hunter is a PvE monster, this is no different. They tend to struggle with camouflage quite a lot. So the AI, that is. So I think this is good. It's definitely does the job. Good sweeper. Good sleeper, and yeah, I'd use this over the normal Shadow Hunter. It's just whether or not you have this one. Next we have not Shiny Stormlock. Next we have Spectrofin, but this creates a token monster, so let's just look at that quickly first. Basically, the important thing is it's a phantom, and it's got a 50-second give turn move that can only give turn to Spectrofin. If this is left alone, say the Spectrofin dies, then all this can do is either die if it's stunned, or with Poison Bomb it can sacrifice itself. However, it has to pass 100 seconds before it can Poison Bomb, so it's a little risky to make this. You have to be very careful if you're going to make the Spectre Wing that it's going to be able to get a turn before Spectrofin has died, and then it can do that give turn to Spectrofin to keep giving Spectrofin extra turns. That's really what you got to think about before you make it. So Spectrofin, fairly complicated. I don't want to go over it too much, but it's got that swap for helper move, which is 160 seconds. Spectral Wing, I think it gets a turn in like somewhere between 60 and 80 seconds. So that's the window you're looking for, and you need to see, okay, is Spectrofin going to die in that time? If it isn't, then it's maybe safe to make the Spectral Wing. It's also good to pull back a certain teammate that might be disabled in some way, or it's got a powerful entrance. That's kind of where everything can line up, and you then go, okay, I'm going to do this. Otherwise, don't really look at swap for helper very much. What you're mainly looking at is how this has insomnia, so it works against sleep. It has excessive force if you have another phantom, so that's where the phantom Spectral Wing comes into play. But if you have another teammate that's phantom, then that's great, because then Dual Slayer Bane becomes piercing, just one-shot everything. It does 6,000 damage, which means even in PvE against buffed monsters, it's insanely good if you can use this with any phantoms. It's then just going to get kills very nicely with that. One Dual Slayer Bane gets you 2 kills, then you can Raw Bloodthirst from there. And otherwise it counters sleep because it's got the Insomnia and Night Watch, which Night Watch being piercing is good too. So this is quite a crazy sweeper in the right scenario, with a bit of flexibility because it can pull back a teammate, get turns extra quickly, and then the secret skill Poison Massacre, if you're using this in Poison, then it can be very good there too. This is quite a crazy sweeper, and it's been something that's been debated a little bit in the community, is like, how good is it? Because I wanted to put this really high, but then there are a bunch of people who say, well, it just keeps dying before it gets a turn. I think that's just a problem you get with some of these amazing sweepers. They are balanced by the fact that they have low-ish speed and low defense. So yeah, sure, it's going to die quite a lot of the time, unless you have some kind of support for it. But if it does get turns, this can be a really, really good sweeper, and the reason why it dies before it gets a turn is because people want to kill it before it gets a turn, because it's very powerful. There's also, side note, this helps the dolphins which have dolphin bond. This itself does not benefit from being with any dolphins, especially because it wants a phantom, and none of the dolphins are phantoms. So yeah, it can help them, giving them the dolphin bond, which is the stats boost and stun immunity. So next we have the monster which I thought we were about to have before, which is Shiny Stormlock. Now this is a lot more interesting than what they did with the Shiny Shadow Hunter. They turned this into a link monster, So the main thing here is they changed the Bloodthirst into Link Blood Crave, which is a 70-second sweeping move. Seriously good compared to the 130-second Bloodthirst that needed 2 kills. And also they put Link Deathstroke as the secret skill, which is very powerful. I think it's Death Wish on the original, which means it needs a kill first and then it does this. Deathstroke doesn't need any kill, it just needs Link, and then you can use this immediately. It's a 50-second move that kills a random enemy. That's seriously good. So this is low speed with hold ground, low speed, low defense, but it has hold ground. If this gets a turn, then it can kill one enemy, it can then just start sweeping at 70 seconds, and it's got sleep to control stuff if you need it to. I think this might sneakily be a very good monster, but we haven't really seen it get used much, and Link's Shadow is not really something used in PvP, and that's where I'd see other people using it. So perhaps in Link's Shadow this is one of those things that's going to help Link's Shadow really work, but it's hard to say for certain without seeing it actually used in practice. But yeah, very cool monster. I think it's very good all round. Next we move on to the Mythics. Now this is the one most exciting Mythic. The other ones are a little bit more awkward. So Asmodia, Roaring Entrance, it comes in, Toxic Entrance as well. So everything's poisoned, it gets a turn immediately, and then it can whip something to deal high damage to it. Now whip is weaker than Poison Eater. It only kills squishy things with the whip, but it is a fast Poison Eater. The main move on this is Bow Out, which is just insane. Anything that's been on the battlefield for 200 seconds, that is not as long as you think. 200 seconds, quite a lot of the time things will survive for 200 seconds. Like 300, 400, that's not really going to happen. But 200 seconds is more like something's come in, it's got its first turn, it's done a move, and then it's, maybe got a second turn, maybe like between its second and third turn, it's that kind of time scale. So quite often there'll be something that has been on the battlefield for 200 seconds, maybe 2 things, and Asmodia, it can just kill them at 70 seconds, instant kill, like, that's insane. This is, really, really good sweeper that sets up poison monsters. It's got a second round of poisoning them with the secret skill as well. It can kill some holy monsters with Heaven Slayer, and then, once it's got a couple of kills, like Bow Out and Whip are kind of the go-to because they are faster, but it can Venom Bloodthirst as well, to, kill monsters with hold ground like that. Very powerful sweeper that is very controlling in poison teams and stuff. It's rare that you see a Roaring Entrance monster that has so much versatility in its sweeping. Most of them are more restricted, but yeah, having Whip and Bow Out on that is very good. So yeah, strong poison monster here. Next we have Lucifer. Now this is one I'm very down on, and I can see why some newer players would think this is really good, but it's not, and I'm going to explain why. So this looks like a powerful sweeper. It's got excessive force, poison immunity is just kind of a bonus, and then it can kill one teammate very quickly with Swift Backbite, or Heartburst to kill an enemy immediately, and then after the Heartburst you want to give turn because it's a high second move, and then it can double Bloodthirst, and with the excessive force does great damage. Problem is, it's not quite enough. This not having full attack means it does not quite enough to one-shot anything except for holy stuff after one kill. It needs the second kill, and Filicide is not going to have many targets at all. Something that's not fully evolved or fully awakened, you don't come across it that much. Like, sure, people use second form Mythics a bit, but like, not all the time. That's not really got targets, so ultimately you're looking for that second kill, and Heartburst only has one use, so it's not like you can Heartburst, give turn, Heartburst. Like, you'd have to Heartburst, give turn, Swift Backbite, and then double Bloodthirst, which that's like quite a lot of effort to you build around this. It's not the highest speed monster. There's nothing stopping someone from killing it. Like, it's not actually that good. Charm is an interesting move. That's the one kind of thing that I would say is interesting about it, that it can put an enemy to sleep for 50 seconds. It can only use it once on an enemy, but like, this is really good for helping, stopping an enemy that's about to get a turn, and you can't deal with it or something in some way, even though this has double Bloodthirst. But you can put that thing to sleep, so it skips that turn and then goes to higher seconds, and sleep skips by 130 seconds. You would assume it's like more towards 110 because it does get reduced by them being towards +9, but this using a 42-second move to pass 110 seconds of an enemy is efficient. So Charm can be quite useful, otherwise it's a sweeper hit, but you probably have to build around it to actually do that, because you need that give turn after Heartburst to get to Double Bloodthirst. Side note, the artwork on this, Lucifer, is actually, this is based on the god demon, I don't know what it's called actually, Lucifer. Is Lucifer like the, is that the devil or something? Anyway, it's got the throne of hell that she sat on, that's what she's kind of based on. So next we have Persephia. Now this is very much Link Shadow AoE spam. Assisted Dusk and Soulbearer means that every time she gets a kill she powers up, so the Assisted Dusk becomes ridiculously powerful. Pretty cool in that regard, but she's very awkward to use because she's all about protectors. Well, I said AoE spam, but you know, that's kind of like a side note if you can pull that off or build around it. But what she does is whenever a teammate dies, you get a rock next in line, so she's going to spam protectors. It's very liable to counters. There are a lot of protector counters around nowadays, so she can just get your team locked behind protectors. But yeah, ideally what you want is that they don't have protector counters. And then what she does is she gets a turn, summons the rocks, throw next, she gets a kill. Once she's got a kill, then she can rebirth stuff. The awkwardness is, if she can't get a kill, and bear in mind, throw next is not super powerful, then she gets a bit stuck. She has to then throw next to get a kill before she can really do anything. And the throw next, it has to line up with, you know, there being a rock there rather than a teammate. But yeah, if she can get a kill, then she's pretty good, because then she can rebirth stuff, which means you can double up revenges, entrances, single-use moves. When she uses it, it creates a rock next in line, so then she can throw that and stuff. You know, there are things you can do with her. You can also build around the Assisted Dusk, but overall she's very awkward, and you really need to work hard to build around her to make her actually do what she wants. Next you have Uraniumedhus. Now this is obviously a reference to uranium, the radioactive substance. So yeah, this is very cool. It's got dual immunity, which is very powerful. Poison immunity and sleep immunity. You can use this in one-on-one. It's going to be very hard to deal with, like harder than you'd expect to deal with. That is, you know, for the opponent facing you when you're using this. The main powerful move on this is radioactive fallout. Only 50 seconds to poison an enemy, and then they lose half their health every turn. Now, how quickly does this kill an enemy? That is actually, you can work this out with maths quite easily. It's 2 to the power of, and then a certain number of turns. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. I think it's something like 8 turns? No. Maybe it's 12? I can't remember exactly. I'll write in the description of this video. But basically there's a certain window, because it's multiplying by 2 each time. There's a certain window of multiplying by 2 which encompasses all legendaries and mythics, because their range is like 4,000, 5,000 health, that kind of thing. So it's in that range. So after that certain number of turns passed, then the monster will die off. This won't trigger the revenge, that kind of thing. You can spam radioactive fallout on them and then skip with your monsters behind things. So if you're skipping with all your monsters, then it's like, you know, skip, 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 and then it's like another turn, another turn, another turn, another turn on those monsters without actually passing much time in play. It's not really possible to kill off a monster before it gets its turn with radioactive fallout. So you use one-on-one, you sleep the enemies, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to radioactive fallout that monster, and then I'm going to do all the skipping to try and kill it off before it gets a turn. Doesn't really work that way, but ultimately it's very, very powerful for killing off things, or for putting them onto low health and then finishing them with finishing snap, that kind of thing. So radioactive fallout, very good move, very fast move for getting advantage. Other than that, it's got high cost moves. So double poison eater is pretty much what you need to use to kill enemies, and ultimately you want to get 3 kills. You can use assisted dusk, so one thing which you could theoretically do is like radioactive fallout 3 monsters. Their health comes down, you then assisted dusk to kill them very easily. It gets you the kills. You then give turn to Uraniumedhus, and then it can killing spree to instantly kill 3 more enemies. The killing spree is basically instant kill any enemy. It's 3 uses, so once it's got 3 kills, it then gets 3 more kills. yeah, that's kind of what you can do. You can also kill off a teammate. It's quite useful for killing off a random token, or something you need to get rid of. And 50 seconds to set up poison monsters is very good too. So there's some cool stuff you can do with this. You can build around it to make it really stand out and do stuff. Otherwise, it's a fine monster. It's not amazing. Well, it's not overpowered. Basically, it's very balanced and good in that respect. It's probably up there as like one of my favourite mythics from the year in terms of the design. I think it's very good. So yeah, that's Uraniumedhus. So lastly, we're on to section 3 now, where we're going to go over kind of where Shadow stands. This video's already been going on for a while, so I'm going to go quickly over this. But as you can see, on the themes, where these new monsters fit into the themes, there's a lot filled here. They did a really good job with those Shadow monsters that they've created this year, I think. And you can see certain ones have been expanded on a lot. There's a lot of guaranteed kill theme stuff. Generally, we get a lot of that nowadays, especially on Mythics, but Shadow gets more focus, so it's no surprise there are 5 there. There's a bit more in the healing stuff. Rune Dragon is just itself, but the other 2, it's showing that, yeah, Shadow does do healing stuff. AoE spam, Uraniumedhus and Persephia both got assisted Dusk, both really quite powerful in AoE spam, so that's cool. If you are going to do AoE spam and create some powerful setup for that, they can both fit in it very nicely. Necromancy stuff, there's some stuff there. Main thing is, though, the poison theme. That is a huge upgrade. Like, there's some really powerful poison stuff there. Asmodia and Spectrafin, both exceptionally powerful monsters, and they fit very nicely into poison. Uraniumedhus can set up any poison monsters very quickly with that, it's like a poison touch almost, but a more powerful poison touch. With the radioactive fallout, and then obviously it has the double poison eater itself. So yeah, really good poison support. That's the main thing to note from this year. And then there's also a new theme here going on, which is the poison immune theme. So this is something that's come out this year that wasn't really in the game before. So I've split these monsters. So on the left you've got the Mark monsters. Mark as an archetype has basically everything poison immune. That's like the main thing about Mark, is that all the monsters have poison immunity, so it's no surprise that there. And Mark seems to be in Mark seems to be in Shadow a fair amount. So yeah, fits very much on theme. Poison immunity with the Mark and Shadow combining. That's what I mean. And then we've got the stealth monsters. Then we've got some poison monsters with poison immunity, and then on the right we have some other monsters with poison immunity. Quite a lot of poison immune monsters in Shadow. It's definitely something which we can now build around if we come up against, like, say, a PvE battle. Shadow does well in PvE as well. That there's loads of poison in it. You can use some of these monsters and you'll probably have a much better time facing that kind of team. So the strength of Shadow monsters, the Mythics, I would say, other than Asmodia, they are a little bit awkward. They're more kind of the middle range Mythics. I'd say Asmodia and Uraniumedhus are the 2 which I really like from this year. The other 2 I'm not so keen on. I'm trying to remember now exactly what they are. Lucifer I know is one of them, and then the other one I can't remember which one it is now. But anyway, so Shadow Mythics didn't come out super well this year in terms of strength, but the Legendaries, there were some very powerful Legendaries there. And certainly the super epics, they were very powerful. Perpy especially, a big thing in PvE now. So Shadow overall, I think it did very well. I'm not too surprised because they did get more monsters in general. But yeah, there's a lot of power that was added in Shadow this year. So where does Shadow stand now? It does well in PvE, as it always has. Still not too well in PvP. The main thing that gets run in PvP is the AoE spam, like I said, but I don't think it's a top tier kind of strategy. But there are lots of very well developed themes. Shadow has the most monsters, so it's not really that surprising that Shadow has well developed stuff. And like I said, thing to note about this year, lots more support for poison. Shadow is probably the best poison element now. Even though fire has historically been the poison element, I think Shadow has overtaken it now and is the most powerful poison element. If you're going to do a poison team, you'll probably end up using more Shadow than you would fire. Yeah, a bit of Mark stuff, and the first Element Accelerate, as I pointed out earlier on, which is, yeah, great advantage for Link Shadow teams. So what does Shadow need? Not much here. Basically, Shadow has the most monsters. It doesn't need that much support, which is why I have the point of ignoring. I think Shadow could probably go through a phase of not having many more monsters. It seems to be the element that they just love designing monsters for. We get consistently lots of monsters each year. And anyway, so otherwise I would say stealth. I would like to see more support for stealth. Like I said last year, I would love to see a bit more Link Shadow stealth. Maybe I'm biased for it because I got Zulong and I love Zulong, but it's a shame that we haven't had anything for years and they're now shifting stealth to water. So yeah, I'd like sort of some more support for it. I gave an example here. I think a sweeper that gets a shield whenever it goes into stealth, quite a cool idea. You can do, interesting ideas like that for stealth rather than it just being stealth, sneak attack, that, being the deal. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I will be coming back next week with the video on Storm, which will be the second last one. That's probably the most exciting video because Storm really got revamped this year, especially for PvP stuff. We've got some really powerful things there. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me for this video. I know it's a longer one. There's a lot of shadow monsters, a lot of really interesting ones to talk about, so I did want to go into some detail. But yeah, thanks for that. I've clearly talked for too long. I'll see you in the next video.